Keeping venomous reptiles is an unforgiving hobby, requiring proper training and lots of experience. One simple mistake can be the difference between life and death. Remember, the most venomous snake in the world is the one that just bit you. There are no venomous snakes with training wheels. Just because you see viperkeeper handle snakes a certain way does not mean you should try it too.
You know, to me, watching the venom drip in the cup is just, you know, icing. It's the active conversation and discussion that, you know, and I think, you know, folks on my channel will also agree that, you know, the discussion is rather important. You know, although, you know, I do have a percentage of watchers and just watch for the you know, the crazy things that might happen.
Right.
But you know, I've got a pretty decent audience, and a lot of them, you know, are certainly into the hobby from the aspect of, you know, the animals and the information that I provide as far as care and husbandry and you know, safety issues. So. But this is a, you know, a rare thing where they get to see extractions done multiple times. So, you know, watching venom drip into a cup, you know, certainly a couple times is certainly interesting. And remember, folks, it's one of those drops will put you in the ground pretty quick. And these guys can produce quite a bit, as you know, we said yesterday, this big male down there in the bottom cage produced a record of 2 grams dry weight with one single milking. So 2 grams is probably 50 to 75 lethal doses or more. Yeah. You know, I'm talking human lethal doses, not mouse human doses. So, you know, and that's just a guesstimate. So, you know, I doubt very much, you know, on a single bite, they would inject you with that much, because venom is a very precious, valuable resource for the animal, not only for defense, but for food procurement. And, you know, unless they knew that they were going to be dead, I don't think they would ever unload fully on you.
Yeah, I always love it when somebody says, yeah, I unloaded all this venom. How do you know that? I mean, that is so... Well, it's just like, what's the fastest striking snake? Dr. Kundal had the best statement to that. He says, until you test every snake out there, just like the human, who's the fastest human? Until you test every human, you don't know what the fastest snake out there is.
Yeah, you know, and that's generally my comeback. It's, look, I can't make any guess because I haven't kept every snake possible in captivity, so I don't know.
A lot of them.
Well, yeah, I've kept a lot of them, and I'm still, you know, I'm still got stragglers that I haven't kept. The Caliophis bivrigata is the latest edition.
Yeah.
I'm hoping those guys do real well.
Yeah, I'm hoping you do well with those too. I think those are really neat.
You know,
there's a lot of stuff I like to work with that I don't work with, mainly because there's no interest in it for venom. And, you know, display animals, you know, my good told me years and years ago, have a big rattlesnake, a big constrictor, and a cobra. And that's what the general public wants to see. You know, the hurt people want to see all these neat stuff like, you know, collet snakes and taipans. But, you know, the general public could care less about that. They don't know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And unfortunately, you know, we don't usually charge hurt people to come through, so we don't make a whole lot of money off of hurt people, because, you know, I just like talking to hurt people. But for the most part, you know, the general public's what we make our money off, and they just come here to see me get killed.
Well, yeah, of course. And, like, you know, a lot of people watch YouTube videos on my channel just to see me get bit.
Right.
It is a rare day where somebody doesn't ask me, have I been bitten before? And I just refuse to even answer the question anymore, just, you know, because it's...
I got a funny story for you. I was doing milking in the one tropical room where we have the glass.
Right.
And there was a person on the other side going, I hope he gets bit. And I'll tell you, at first I was real pissed. I'm like, wow, this idiot wants me to get bit. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute. He's coming here, each time he comes here, I'm going to disappoint him and not get bit. And I'm going to use his money to do research on cancer and other stuff. So I'm going to use his stupidity to make money. So, but at first it really did tweak me because the guy wanted, he wanted to see me get bit. And, so I used that to my advantage. And, I don't do anything that I feel, I try to be as respectful to the animal as possible and not do anything that's going to hurt the animal. And I also try not to make it any showier than it has to be. Mm-hmm. And the guy who did the venom interviews, he came here and he interviewed you too, didn't he?
You mean Ray Morgan?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ray's I think, hopefully he finds a market for that.
Yeah, I do too.
Because
he seems like a really nice guy. But I was telling him, and he said the same thing in an interview. I think it was on Urban Jungle Radio. Mm-hmm. He said that sometimes the truth is just as exciting as the pumped up fantasy that people want to see. I mean, TV producers who come here are really disappointed because I'm not flamboyant. I don't act like I need Ritalin. I'm not running around crazy and everything else. But the fact is, if I did that every day, I'd be in the hospital every day. The calmer I am, the more likely I'm going to come out of this with at least a few more fingers. So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to lessen the stress on them, like you said earlier. Lessen the stress on them, lessen the stress on me, and make it out of this alive while still providing the venoms that save people who don't seem to have the same
characteristics. Yeah. I think Ray's a good guy. I've had additional conversations with him. I can't wait to see the finished product. I'm sure he'll do the hot herpers justice by the video he's collected. I actually hooked him up with some additional people that I thought was important to have. All my best to Ray, because he really has his heart in the right place.
A lot of work, man.
Oh yeah, a lot of work.
Just like people would say, "Why don't you write a book?" Well, why don't you write it? They've never written a book. They have no idea how much time it takes.
To get a coherent, even care sheets.
Yep.
It takes a while to.
Well, the stuff you're doing takes a while. You've done a good service by putting out good information and stuff, but it takes a while. You've taken your time, and you're doing it for free. You're doing it to help out hurt people. So, people need to realize that and realize that, that a lot of the stuff that's out there is being produced and done the goodness of people's hearts because of their passion. So, but with passion comes obsession. So, and a lot of times we do see a lot of people who become obsessed, and those are the people who become a poster child, for all the Animal Planet stuff. I personally think that we need to be very careful about being poster children for all the laws. We've discussed my brother before, and me and him don't get along, and we definitely don't see eye to eye on anything, but let alone herps. But we need to not give him fuel. We need to not give people like him any kind of energy, and that means being cautious of what we do. Because we're a minority, we have to conduct ourselves above board. More than, just like a police officer has to be above board. They can't make any moral mistakes. We can't afford to, not now. And so when I talk to people and they say, oh, I want to get my first hunt, I said, well, get experience, get all the permits you need. If it's an exotic, get the anti-serum so that when you get bit, it isn't blared across the news media they're searching. Because HEPA won't allow it. If you have your own anti-serum, they're not allowed to release it to the public. But if it's on the radio and every paramedic hears it, it's going to get out there. Because people, from your history of knowing stuff about this stuff, how many people listen to the emergency radio?
Oh yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, usually it's the normal gossip that, you know, people don't have a life, and, you know.
And those are the people that are going to cause us problems.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
Because they don't understand it.
Yep. And, you know, that's part of our job is to make it understood. You know, make them realize that, well, I went through and my brother claimed he had 200 incidents in Ohio. Well, I went through and looked at Born Free. Since 1990, they've only had 1,200 incidents in the whole United States.
Wow.
How could he have 200 incidents a year? That's what he's claiming. It's full of crap. You know, it's not true. So, you know, people need to test. They have to ask the questions, where are all these animals coming from? And, you know, some of the stuff might be staged. But you know what? Somebody's selling that person that animal to stage it with. So those people need to be aware of who they're selling their animals to.
Well, yeah. You know, one of the...
Yeah, he's doing that thing with his tongue.
One of those best quotes I heard recently is that the truth has no agenda, and it's our job to get the truth out there and heard, and let people make their own assessment of the situation.
Well,
And the media certainly doesn't abide by that particular rule. They're out there to color it, to sensationalize it, and get the most views and ad revenue as possible.
what happened was years ago when it believed that leads became and good reporters and good journalists got fired because they weren't willing to do the, you know, sensational stuff or misrepresent stuff. They'd actually ask questions.
Right.
The guy who came here and interviewed me about the extraction this last time was a really good guy. He goes, you know, it's sad because, you know, if I do a story like this, it won't probably get as many readers as if I had a story about you being bit. But he says, I don't want to do a story about you being bit. I want to do a story about you being successful and I about fainted. Because everybody wants to hear about when I'm bit. Nobody cares. You know, when I die, nobody's going to probably care. But the only thing I'll be remembered for is my bites. None of the other good stuff. You mean the thousands of times I've done it right, nobody will remember.
Yeah.
What they'll remember is the 5 times I screwed up, you know, and stuff like that. So, I mean,
Yep, that's the general rule. It doesn't just, it's not just limited to herpers. It applies across the board to everything. It's always that one bad cop that, you know, screws it up for all the good cops, and they don't remember all the lives saved and stuff. They only remember that one guy that goes berserk and beats the crap out of the suspect.
right. Well, and the thing with videos is it helps sometimes and it hurts sometimes in the fact that we're only seeing part of what really happens sometimes. And with editing, we can make anything look like anything we want it to look like.
Oh, well, of course.
You know, when I got ran over by the stolen car and stuff, you know, I thought I'd be treated like a hero. I had to get a lawyer. I had to get a lawyer to get them to do the surgeries on my knee. I had to have 4 surgeries done on my knee, had a blood clot pass through my heart and stop my heart. I was 26 years old. You know, and I had a stupid idea that I'd be treated more like a hero instead of a zero, and I had to get a lawyer. You know?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, they're actually literally, one of the guys, Kristen saw the letter when we were going through the paperwork at my mom's house. One of the city managers blamed it on my kickboxing. And I'm like, I never had my foot turned around the opposite direction while kickboxing. And I didn't have a hole in my leg from where the bumper went through. I said, give me a break, you know? But it took me over a year to get my first surgery. Walking around on, you know, and if I had a surgery right away, I may not have needed the other surgeries, and I could have got back to work. You know, I'm a hyper person, as you can tell. I don't like not being working.
yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I don't like sitting around doing nothing either. It certainly drives me crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
As quiet as I get is, you know, when I'm reading a book or research papers, but other than that, I've got to be active.
yeah. Well, and, you know, that particular person had an agenda on me because I had arrested him for DUI.
Ah, yes, okay. You know, we've been passing through a number of Eastern Diamondbacks here, and you know, you don't notice because you're chugging along, but you've got some beautiful specimens here and really nice looking animals.
I think this is Kristen's favorite. I think she likes this color. We have that albino that I'm not going to milk because those are cooled down for breeding and exhibit. But yeah, we still have in quarantine those ones that came from when we came up there and meet you guys up there in Pennsylvania. But they're doing okay. Have you ever noticed that with adults that are wild caught that you have a better chance of getting them a feed if you put them in a dark place and give them a bunny?
Oh yeah, with Easterns, yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Either that, a bunny, or a squirrel, ground squirrel.
Yeah, I was telling Kristen, I said, you know, she goes, how did you come up with that? I said, I didn't come up with it. Somebody told me about it. I said, that's how a lot of information gets spread around is people tell each other. You know, the one thing that I thought is a bad thing is for people who think they've invented anything. You know, the wheel was invented a long time ago. You know, the herd community, the other thing that kind of bothers me is there's become this them and us, them and us, them and us, when there's more likely there's more common ground than there is them and us. And people are just so pissed off at some of the zoos, and that to the point that they forget that some of the zoos came up with some of the techniques that are now being used, and some of the private individuals came up with some of the techniques the zoos are using. So let's give credit where credit's due. No one person did it. No one group of people did it. It was a combined effort.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've been doing this a long time, like you have, and I still learn new things just by talking to people. And it doesn't really matter if they've been doing it 10 years or 30 years. Everybody's got, you know, good information to provide, and you know, and of course some people have bad information to provide, but you know,
you can even learn from bad information.
Well, yeah, you at least know what not to do.
Right. Well, you know, I think we're evolving all the time. And I told Kristen, I said, somebody said, well, are you willing to change techniques if we could find some safer way to do it? I said, yep. I evolve all the time. I mean, I used to not tube stuff. Now I tube a lot of the stuff because they squirm too much. You know, these guys so far have been well behaved. I'm going to jinx myself probably. But you know, when they're well behaved and they're not jerking all over the place, you don't have to worry about damaging their necks.
Right, exactly.
With terrificus, man, they'll snap their neck.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a win for the animal and a win for you when they're sort of calm like this. And, you know, when I did the one extraction for the parviocula venom paper, I realized after the first snake that the correct way to get a maximum yield from those guys was to tube them, because if you tried pinning them, they would bite the stick, they would bite anything that came near their head, and you'd lose, you know, half the venom sample on the floor. Yeah, certain animals, you know, even the mambas, would be best to tube them rather than try to pin them, because, you know, I've seen them, you know, squirt venom while you're holding them in the hand, and, you know, that's not so good.
Well, don't.
So when you all that comes out and is discarded in the centrifugation process, then.
Well, this venom we don't centrifuge. They want this raw.
They want raw venom.
Raw venom. So what happens with this is that we just lyophilize it. We freeze it and lyophilize it as soon as it's frozen. Pop it in the lyophilizer machine, and that's what they want. Now the cobra venom they want centrifuged, because all they want is the neurotoxin. They don't care about any other things. This stuff, which makes sense, they want everything of it, because there are certain components, as you know, preaching to the choir, certain components make other components work.
Right, exactly.
So if we somehow remove those or break that chain, we may not have what we need to make a good anti-venom. You know, especially with polosis and hortus. So that needs to be reconsidered and
you know, also that, you know, it doesn't work all that great with Helleri either.
Oh no. Well, you know, Helleri, the neurotoxin from Helleri may be close to Mojave, but it's not Mojave. And there may be something causing that chain to work differently. You know, that's what I know they're looking at that, but, you know, it makes sense that it wouldn't. I mean, you know, the thing that gets me is all these people saying, oh, look, it's evolution. Well, yeah, it's evolution, but it probably happened long time before we started talking about it. It's just that now we're moving, like you said, we're moving into their areas. You know, I tell people, you know, let me test the venom for 100 years in different populations, and then test it again at the end of that 100 years. And if it changes, then I can say, yeah, it evolved. You know, but it could have evolved at any time before this, and we just don't know it. You know, we don't have enough. Well, we didn't fingerprint every type of venom. It's only been recently people like Dr. Fry and people like that have gone out there and started taking individual samples from different locations, which is the way to do it. Mm-hmm. But it's only been recent that that's happened. So,
well, yeah, I mean, you know, even valid peer-reviewed papers of yesteryear, you know, don't necessarily have it right. And, you know, we, of course, find out more as the new scientists come online, like Dr. Fry, and, you know, they're doing more targeted studies.
Plus we have better equipment.
Oh, yeah. Well, not only, yeah, that certainly helps.
You know, people like yourself who work with the equipments and stuff, we have much better equipment than we did years ago. So we can, you know, get the stuff and look at it. But, you know, yeah, there's people who are interested too. I mean, you know, the interest has to be there for something to be done. Mm-hmm. You know, and in the past, if you survived snake bite, that was good enough. Mm-hmm. That's all they were worried about was whether you survived snake bite or not. They didn't care about all the other stuff involved. You know, personally, I want to know what happens to people years down the line from snake bite. I've got a vested interest in it. You know, what's it going to do to your organs? You know, even if you survive and the anti-serum works good, what's it going to do to your organs?
Well, you know, let's hope everybody has the same success that Bill Hastas had, because he seems to be plugging right along.
Well, you know as well as I do. He's a vegetarian.
Right.
He's a very healthy person, very active person, has good genetics, and has never been in a car accident. They're seriously fit. So there's a lot of things that come into play in longevity.
Well, yeah.
You know, I have a bad, in my family, heart conditions, you know, run in my family. I mean, my dad had 15 brothers, and 4 of them died at the age of 40 from sudden heart attack. You know, my dad had open heart surgery when he was my age. So, you know, it's a genetic thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why it's, you know, I laugh at a lot of these studies because, yeah, okay, you can infer certain things from them, but you can't say for certain because they can't account for everybody's different genetics.
Right. Well, each person's going to react different to a bite. Each person's going to react differently to drugs that are used on them. You know, we're actually throwing the baby out with the bathwater when we, you know, say, well, we're going to sue every time a new drug comes out and somebody has a reaction to it. Well, if a million people are saved and 2 people die from that drug, it's sad if you're one of the 2 people, but you know what? The million people lived. You know, are we going to stop developing drugs because we're so scared of being sued?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, people don't realize it, you know, because they just see on the advertisements or in the circular, well, you could possibly have this reaction, but then they don't look at the numbers, you know, out of all the people in the test series, you know, this happened in less than 1% out of, you know, 10,000 people. Mm-hmm. Okay, you know, 10 people had this reaction. Well, how many people had positive results of, you know, having been on the drug during that series? You know, these are the things that you don't consider. You know, I take, you know, Celebrex myself, and it works great, better than anything else that I've had.
Right.
You know, you're going to die somehow, some way, and in my opinion is, you know, when my time's up, it's up. It's as simple as that.
Right. You can't, yeah, there's nothing you can do.
I'm not going to second guess the pharmaceutical companies. Could they do things better? Yes. But, you know, look at other countries, you know, that don't have these safeguards. Far more people are injured by the pharmaceutical companies. That's a funny looking fang sheath.
Yeah, he just broke the one backwards. It's folding back.
Okay.
But yeah, that's well, that's my feeling on it too. Is that, you know, we've we've gotten to the point where we're just so worried about everything that could happen that something is going to happen. We're not going to have drugs. You know, we're going to be at the point where a lot of our drugs are going to be, you know, not around because everybody's going to be afraid to make them.